A 21-year-old girl walked into a tennis stadium in Washington, D.C. 6 days ago as an afterthought on the draw sheet, and by the end of the week, the tournament's own chairman was telling reporters that virtually every ticket request he was getting had nothing to do with the Grand Slam champions in the field, it was all about her. And right now, as you're watching this, she is one match away from becoming the first person from her entire country to ever win a title at this level, except that match isn't finished yet, and nobody, not the fans, not the bookmakers, not even the player herself, knows how it ends. Stick with me to the end of this, because there's a detail about what's happening on that court right now, tonight, that changes the entire shape of this story, and if you click away early you're going to miss it. Before we get into it, if stories like this one, the ones nobody saw coming until it was too late to ignore, are the reason you're here, do one thing for me. Subscribe right now. This channel exists to catch these runs while they're still happening, not 3 days later when everyone else has already moved on. If you want to be early instead of late, hit subscribe, because that's exactly what's about to happen again. Now, rewind 6 days. Alexandra Eala landed in Washington ranked 28th in the world. Unseeded. A talented player with a loyal following back home, but not a name that made the draw sheet feel dangerous. That was Monday. By Saturday, she would be a name nobody in that sport could forget again. It started with unfinished business. Her opening match put her across the net from Zheng Qinwen, the reigning Olympic gold medalist, a player who had beaten her badly at the 2023 Asian Games, a loss Eala had carried for close to 3 years. For a set, it looked like history was about to repeat. She dropped the first set, and the match hung in the balance. Then something shifted. She clawed back the second set and closed it out in the third, 4-6, 6-4, 6-1, completing the kind of comeback that doesn't happen by accident. 48 hours later, an even bigger name was waiting. Leylah Fernandez, the tournament's defending champion, a player who had beaten Eala convincingly months earlier in Stuttgart. Eala took the first set clean. Then Fernandez surged ahead in the second, and for a stretch it looked like the run was about to end exactly where everyone expected it to. Instead, Eala won the tiebreak that followed and closed out the match, and the defending champion was dethroned. In the stands, people who had come to watch someone else entirely were suddenly asking who this girl was. The quarterfinal brought Alina Svitolina, world number 10, the tournament's second seed, a player Eala had already beaten weeks earlier in Berlin by an identical scoreline. Everyone wondered if lightning could strike twice in the same spot. It did. Same score, 6-3, 6-4, Eala breaking Svitolina's serve multiple times across the match. Afterward, asked how she'd done it again, her answer was almost disarmingly calm, something about coming in with a good mindset and simply staying locked into her rhythm. Then came the moment that turned this from a nice underdog story into something historic. The semi-final put her across the net from Naomi Osaka, a 4-time Grand Slam champion and former world number 1. It marked the first time this level of tournament had ever featured an all-Asian women's semi-final. Eala won it in straight sets, 6-4, 6-2, breaking Osaka's serve 4 times and winning 71% of her first serve points in a match that lasted barely over an hour. A player who wasn't even mentioned in the tournament's pre-event coverage had just eliminated a 4-time major champion to reach her first ever WTA 500 final. While all of that was happening on the court, something else was happening off it. The tournament's chairman, Mark Ein, told reporters that over the past month, his ticketing team had noticed something impossible to ignore. At least 80%, he said, of every ticket inquiry the tournament received was about one specific question: when is Alex Eala playing? He added that he suspected the real number was even higher, and that his team simply hadn't wanted to say so out loud. This wasn't a tournament with a quiet undercard story. This was a tournament with Grand Slam champions and Olympic medalists in the draw, and the demand was overwhelmingly about a 21-year-old who wasn't even a top 20 player when the week began. Ein said his team had actually identified her rise as a phenomenon back in early spring and made a deliberate push to bring her to Washington because of it. Tickets for her matches, once mostly sold out already, vanished within hours of that semi-final win. Fans drove in from New York, from Virginia, from Maryland, turning the grounds into a wave of Philippine flags. Her practice sessions alone started drawing crowds that rivaled actual matches. And there's a name circling all of this that hasn't stepped on court with her yet, but has clearly been paying attention. Aryna Sabalenka, the current world number 1, is chasing something no woman has done at the US Open since Serena Williams, a third straight title at Flushing Meadows. Months before any of this Washington drama unfolded, Eala was asked in an interview which shot she'd steal from any player on tour if she could. Without hesitation, she said she'd take Sabalenka's serve, one of the most dominant deliveries in the sport. Both players are already entered at the US Open next month, which means the version of Eala that just walked through an Olympic champion, a defending champion, a top 10 veteran, and a 4-time Grand Slam winner could be on a collision course with the very player whose game she once said she wanted to steal from. Now here's what's actually on the line, because the numbers are enormous. The total prize pool at this tournament sits above $1.6 million. Simply reaching the final already guaranteed Eala the largest single payday of her career, dwarfing what she earned during her breakthrough run to the 4th round of Wimbledon just weeks earlier. Win the final, and that number jumps again to the single largest paycheck she has ever collected in one afternoon. She was asked what it felt like when a reporter mentioned the projected payout, and all she could say was that it sounded surreal, almost too big to process. The ranking math is just as significant. She walked into this tournament at number 28 in the world. Every round she won chipped away at that number, and by the time she'd beaten Osaka in the semi-final, she had already locked in a new career-high position inside the world's top 25, regardless of what happens in the final. One more win doesn't just nudge that number, it rockets it, pushing her into the top 20 in the world for the first time in her career. And there's a title on the line that no player from the Philippines has ever won at this level. If she lifts that trophy, she becomes the first person from her entire country to do it. A first that, by definition, can never happen twice. But here's where the story takes the turn that nobody, including the players, can control. The final against Jessica Pegula, the tournament's top seed and world number 3, didn't go the way anyone scripted it. It started 3 hours late because of thunderstorms rolling through Washington. When it finally began, Pegula came out sharp, breaking Eala's serve twice to close out the first set 6-4. Eala answered immediately, holding to push ahead 2-1 in the second. Then the sky opened up again. Lightning forced the players off the court, and after roughly 8 hours of delays across the day, organizers made the only call they could. The match was suspended. Not finished. Suspended, with Pegula still leading by a set and a break, Eala serving to stay within reach. That match resumes today. Right now, as far as anyone watching this knows, nobody can tell you who walks away with this title, because it genuinely has not been decided yet. If Eala finds her way back into this final and wins it, she becomes the first Filipino tennis player in history to win a title at this level, on top of a ranking that's already rocketing into new territory. If Pegula closes it out instead, she picks up her 12th career WTA title and her second championship specifically in Washington, 7 years after her first one at this same tournament. Either way, the story that gets written after today looks completely different depending on which way that second set goes. None of this was ever guaranteed, either. Just 3 weeks before Washington, Eala lost in the 4th round at Wimbledon, ending what had been the deepest Grand Slam run of her career. She flew almost directly from London to Washington with barely any time to reset, and in her very first match of this tournament, she nearly didn't survive the first round at all, down a set and a break before clawing her way back. If one point goes differently in that opening match, none of what came after happens. No win over the defending champion. No statement win over Osaka. No shot at history in this final. The entire run has been sitting on a razor's edge from the very first afternoon. So here's exactly where things stand. A rain-suspended championship final, frozen mid-match, with the outcome genuinely unknown. A 21-year-old unseeded player who has already guaranteed herself a new career-high ranking no matter what happens next, sitting one set away from either the biggest title of her life, or a heartbreakingly close finish against a player who has beaten her before. a tournament chairman calling her the best thing to happen to his event all year. A world #1 chasing her own piece of history, still waiting for the day their paths finally cross on the same court. And millions of people back home refreshing their phones, waiting to see if today is the day their country's name finally appears on a list it has never been on before. Whatever happens when that match resumes, one thing is already true. The girl who was an afterthought on a draw sheet 6 days ago is now the only name anyone in that stadium wants to say. The moment that final actually finishes, and it decides whether this becomes a historic first title or a narrow near miss, that result is going straight into the next video on this channel. Subscribe now so you're not the last person to find out how this one actually ends, because right now, nobody watching this knows the answer yet, not even the players standing on that court.